Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. We now have our welcoming by our president, Ms. Pauline Ogimbi-Kowo.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to the 2021 Virtual General Membership Conference. I want to thank all of you for joining us today. As you know, the objective and purpose of the Los Angeles County African American Employees Association, better known as LACAEA, is to serve and support the professional development needs of African American employees of the County of Los Angeles. Also, to support the communities served by LACAEA's members and to discourage bias through the thoughtful elevation of African American culture. As such, this year's theme, the State of Black Los Angeles County, Together We Stand, Anti-Racism, Diversity and Inclusion, was chosen to demonstrate LACAEA's full commitment and support to the July 2021 Board of Supervisors motion to implement an anti-racism policy agenda. We acknowledge that there has been some trauma in our communities that will not continue to be static. This morning, we are going to hear from the Honorable Supervisor Holly J. Mitchell, 2nd District, Dr. Montu Davis from the Department of Public Health, Dr. Jonathan Sharon from the Department of Mental Health, and Mr. Salwin Hollins from the Internal Service Department, and Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza, the Executive Director of the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiative. What a great lineup. These county leaders will share what they are doing to address anti-racism and the ARTI initiative. Also joining us today in support are Executive Directors Keith Knox from the Treasurer and Tax Collector, Ms. Terry Hardy, Children and Support Services, Antonia Jimenez, Department of Public Social Services, and Cynthia McCoy Miller, our very own LACAEA Executive Advisor and Senior Deputy Director of the Department of Children and Family Services. Now, I hope I haven't missed one of our special guests. Also today, we will recognize the dedication and contributions from 3 of our retiree members. And we will also announce the 2021 Scholarship Program awardees. Oh, what a time. Oh, what a time we are going to have today. We are on a trajectory to see change happen here in the great county of Los Angeles, and that change starts with elevating, educating, and empowering the members of our association and the community. Please, please enjoy today's conference and stay involved. Thank you.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven rings. Ring with the harmonies of liberty. Let our rejoicing rise high as the listening skies. Let it resound loud as the rolling seas. Sing a song full of the faith that the dark past has taught us. Sing a song full of the hope that the present has brought us. Facing the rising sun of our new days begun. Let us march on till victory is won.
All right, awesome job, awesome job. That was TJ, Terrence Smith. We call him TJ. He is the son of a LA County and a LaKea member. So just happy to have him today to sing our Negro National Anthem. Thank you, TJ. We appreciate you. Don't tell anybody, but that's my nephew too. He can sing, can't he? I know he can. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Daryl Burnett. I'm your moderator and host for today. I'm a member of LA County and a proud member of LaKea as well. I'm just glad to be here and glad to be your host for today. I want to get a few housekeeping items out of the way as we start. Number one, enjoy yourself, please. Please enjoy yourself. Number two, there are going to be some very important speakers that are going to be with us today. Write down that information and take it back to your community. Take it back to your community. They're going to have some important things that are good for African Americans. Take it back and share it with people that you know, your family and your community. Three, we not only want you to listen, we want you to participate. So there's a chat feature down below. Write your questions down, write your things down that you want to know, and we have somebody moderating and looking at those questions, and we'll get back to those questions and answer them for you. Again, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for participating. You guys look good, and we want to have a good time today. As we start, we want to introduce, and it's an honor for us to have our Congresswoman Karen Bass to share a few words with us. She was elected for a sixth term and is serving for the 37th district. She serves the House Committee on Foreign Affairs, where she is the chair of the Subcommittee on Africa, Global Health, and Global Human Rights. Without further ado, Ms. Karen Bass.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me speak with you briefly today. I hope that we can all be together soon in person. Last year, cities and counties around the world experienced a racial reckoning. People around the United States were waking up and realizing that it's not enough just to be not racist. We have to be intentionally anti-racist. So that's why the Board of Supervisors moved to implement an anti-racist agenda, and I commend them for that. But most importantly, I commend the Board of Supervisors and the state legislature for what was done around Bruce Beach. I think it provides a lesson for all of us around the country who have talked about the theft of resources from our community, the theft of land, the theft of jobs, of businesses, etc. And Bruce Beach really gives an example to the nation of what reparations might mean. We know that progress, though, just doesn't happen overnight. And we also know that progress can be taken away if it's not continually protected. So the work that the association and your members have done to combat racism in our county is vital. And I urge you to continue that fight and know that I will be standing alongside of you as you do that. So thank you again for having me to speak with you, and I look forward to seeing you all in person very soon.
Thank you again, Congresswoman. Let's give her a hand. I know we can't see you, all of you, but just give her a hand or a shake like that or some claps or some snaps, you know, good job, y'all, good job. Thank you. Next up, we have someone who is no stranger to us. On November the 3rd, 2020, she was elected to serve the 2nd District of Los Angeles County. Throughout her career in public service, she has always worked with understanding that creating a California where all residents can thrive means investing in communities, small businesses, families, and children of LA County. She has authored and passed over 90 laws in the California legislature. Her resume includes being a part of California State Legislature, representing the 54th District Assembly member, and a state senator for the 30th districts. We are elated to have none other than Holly J. Mitchell. Y'all give it up for her.
Mr. Burnett, thank you very much for that generous introduction. And yes, your nephew can indeed sing. I appreciate starting my Saturday morning hearing the Negro National Anthem. I do. When I went to work for Crystal Stairs, some of you may know my work history. I had the privilege of leading Crystal Stairs for a number of years. And when I first went to work for Crystal Stairs, I was hired as their vice president of external affairs. You know, I'd come from Sacramento, and they hired me because of my policy and advocacy experience to try to help make sure we were continuing to bring necessary financial resources for our families and children and child care providers. And my first board meeting for Crystal Stairs, they opened their board singing the National Negro Anthem. And I thought, this is an organization where I belong. They were clear and unapologetic about who they were as an organization, whose children they were coming to work every day to support and enhance. And that made me very proud. So thank you for reminding me of my wonderful experience leading that amazing agency. So good morning. And I really appreciate you extending an invitation to me to join you. Not only today, but so many of you have welcomed me very warmly into the county family. And that means a great deal to me personally. My parents met as eligibility workers working for the Department of Public Social Services. My mother was a USC grad, their School of Social Work. And I'm sorry, my father's gone, so you can hear the story about when he saw that tall drink of water walk in the office the first day. Shameful. Anyway, that's where my parents met. And when I think about it, you know, I am clear that I do the work I do today because of my early exposure. Like I'm sure for many of us, all of the adults around me in those early formative years were my parents' friends who, you know, came up in a time in LA where getting a good county job is what you did if you were Black people. We were clear that government work is what helped really propel and support the Black middle class, quite frankly, particularly here in LA County. So, you know, my grandmother and great aunt were clerk typists too for the LA County. And it was just multi-generational, but it was clear. It was a clear path for so many of us in terms of our grandparents and our parents and all of you as county employees. So I'm proud to find myself at this station, at this moment in my career as an official member of LA County. And I think my parents would be tickled by that, quite frankly. I'm also proud to join a board of supervisors at this unique moment in time. Karen alluded to it. When my mother was a social worker in those early stages of her own career, late 50s, early 60s, it really was a time much like this, where the world understood that historically underrepresented communities weren't going to take it anymore. It was evidenced then by the Watts uprising, the Watts Rebellion, as my father always referred to it. We are experiencing it now in terms of the world's attention to hardly served communities historically that have now been disproportionately impacted by a dual pandemic, a public health pandemic and an economic pandemic, and a racism pandemic, I will say. So for us and for you and our families and the communities that we live in, it's a trifecta. And so this is a unique opportunity for us to acknowledge that, say it is so, and work arm in arm every day to dismantle the systemic racist structures that are sometimes ingrained in government. You know, Karen referenced Bruce Beach. You know, that was government that engaged in that action that stole the property from Charles and Willa Bruce. And so all of us have a responsibility to look inward. Dr. Scorza, I'm glad you're going to hear from him later today, is helping to lead us as a county family. I see you. Is helping to lead us as a county family in identifying and naming anti-racist, anti-Black systems, policies, practice, and dare I say behaviors and attitudes. And before we can point the finger outward, there are always three fingers pointing back. And I am proud that a government entity, the size and scope and power and authority of LA County, is acknowledging that and beginning the process of dismantling it. It will not be easy. We will have starts and stops. My job, quite frankly, as the Black woman on the board, is to hold it up as our goal always, not just because it's cool to talk about equity now, but to make sure that we are putting forward systems, our budgeting process, your budgeting process in your departments, and the way in which we deliver county services is reflective of us internalizing what equity looks like and how to operationalize it. You know, I think it's really important that we all acknowledge that, you know, the county is an employer. I get that. And we have a responsibility to you as county employees to be mindful of those issues around implicit and explicit bias as well. You know, my staff and I, my chief of staff, Frederica McGee, which I hope all of you will have the opportunity to meet. I hope that you will invite her to address your group, because she is, dare I say, a bad mamma jamma. I'm very proud that she decided to leave Sacramento and come home to LA County with me to help me in this effort to build a team that I'm very proud of, to bring resources and services to my home district of the 2nd District that I'm very proud to represent. And there was a group that was recently convened, led by April Verrett with SEIU 2015, that developed a report. I'm scanning my notes here. And they identified 10 principles for a reinvention of Los Angeles. And it's from the Not Going Back report. And I invite you to read it. Ms. Pauline in her opening told us to stay involved, and I hope that you will. I hope you get a copy of this Not Going Back report. You know, as a member of the Legislative Black Caucus for years, we have done the State of Black California. There have been the State of Black LA County reports that really show us, quite frankly, dismal statistics, homeownership, levels of incarceration, that our communities are over-policed, health disparities, the list goes on. What I like about this report is it makes affirmative statements that really should guide all of our individual and collective work. It talks about, one, that we need to address anti-Black racism in all forms, build an economy that prioritizes those who have been left behind, support the health of communities and individuals living with the trauma of systemic neglect and oppression, create housing for all and end unsheltered homelessness, ensure access, mobility, and voice for immigrants regardless of status. And we know how important that is as we've watched the US government's response to our Haitian brothers and sisters in the media recently. 6, support education access for all children across all communities. 7, celebrate and support youth leadership and empowerment. 8, strengthen the nonprofit sector as a key part of civil society. 9, build community power and develop accompanying metrics to hold systems accountable. And 10, align business, community, philanthropy, and government for equity. Those are the kinds of principles that I invite you to hold me accountable to. I am going to do all that I can to continue to raise issues of equity, to demand that we as a county government practice what we preach in terms of our treatment of employees, in terms of the systems we build, and in terms of the services and the populations we serve. I really appreciate you affording me this opportunity this morning. It's great to see familiar faces. Selwyn, Dr. Sharon, Dr. Scorza, thank you so much for our ongoing partnership and you doing all that you do every day to help me deliver services, not only to the 2nd Supervisorial District residents, but to help build an LA County that we all can grow old in with dignity and raise our children to thrive. Good morning, have a great day, and thank you so much for allowing me to share some time with you.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Mitchell. And I'm sure I speak for everybody in saying thank you for being a voice for us and just looking at the problems that are in our communities and trying to solve them. And we appreciate that. And we will be looking up that Not Going Back report. Everybody write that down, the Not Going Back report. Look that up. It's some very good information in that. Thank you again, Supervisor Mitchell, for joining us. And before I go along, I want to please give a shout out to Pauline Newman, who was the interpreter during the national anthem, and just say thank you for doing that for us. You did a beautiful job, and she sure can sign, can't she, Joe? Yeah, she sure can. So thank you, Pauline. I appreciate that. That's why I like LACAA. Just in case you don't know what LACAA means, it's the Los Angeles County African American Employees Association. So I wanted to get that right. I got I remember it because I got a cousin named Kaya, and she's our little cousin. So I say LACAA. So I remember it like that. So you know how we do things like that. So we just appreciate LACAA, and I encourage all you to join. Y'all can get different things like this, different activities and different things that can help the African American community when you join us and get to know a lot of people. We don't want you to go through anything alone. We don't want you to be lost in the shuffle. We can help you out and guide you through a lot of stuff. We are blessed to have the director of the Department of Health with us today. Dr. Jonathan Sharon is a longtime advocate who works tirelessly throughout his career on behalf of the vulnerable populations. In his current role as director of Los Angeles County of Mental Health, he oversees the largest public health system in the United States, with an annual budget approaching $3 billion. Prior to joining DMH, Dr. Sharon served over a decade with the Department of Veterans Affairs, where he held a variety of positions, one being Chief of Medical Health for the Miami VA healthcare system, also Vice Chair of the Department of Psychiatry and Behavioral Sciences at the University of Miami, and currently as a volunteer clinician professor both at USC and UCLA. His contributions in neuroscience have been published in Science magazine, and he has also received the prestigious Kemp Award for American Psychiatric Association. Although we can't see everyone, let's put our hands together for Dr. Jonathan Sharon. Thank you.
Thanks very much for that kind intro. That bio is a little bit long and hard to get through. I got to work on that. And I had surgery a couple of days ago, so I got a little bit less juice than usual, but I'm really, really thrilled and honored to be here. It's really incredible to be able to speak in the with the association, and I thank the association again for inviting me, and also with these great leaders, with Congresswoman Bass and my boss Supervisor Mitchell, Dr. Scorza, Dr. Davis, and Selwyn Hollins, these are incredible people. So for me, it's beyond an honor to be with you today. And I'd just like to start kind of dovetailing on some of the comments of Supervisor Mitchell around the unprecedented number of pandemics that we're facing. And, as a mental health guy, all these different things come together and they create a tidal wave of mental health need. and certainly a pandemic of sorts that we're trying very, very hard to respond to and not react to, and to stay true to our mission of caring for the most vulnerable and those with the most profound and chronic mental illness and addictions, but at the same time look after the entire collective, because the entire collective is suffering. And I will say, if there's a silver lining for me as a mental health professional, I think it's pretty clear to us, to everyone around this world, that if you don't have mental health, you got issues, and we have to focus on mental health. We have to elevate it, not just as a field, but as a right for people to have access to. And what I will say about the different types of stressor and the topic today around racism is that institutional inequity, structural racism is trauma. It's trauma for people. It's trauma for people that is not, that affects specific populations, obviously. And that for me is a mental health imperative. Sorry about that. I should be better at this after this last year and a half, getting around my Zoom. Anyway, well, I can't see you, but I can feel you. I wish I were there in person. For me, the memo in the context of all of this trauma is really that we are so interdependent. We are so interconnected. And until we recognize that and honor it, we're never, ever going to get to the point we need to as a society, as a people, as humanity. And what we say in the department is that none of us is well until all of us are well. In the aftermath of the George Floyd murder, my department rose. My department came to me, I came to them. There was a ton of grief that was shared, a ton of hostility and a lot of unrest, and a real demand for change. And I will say that that came from every direction. And most importantly for me, it came from the trenches up. And we created what we called, and this is like July of 2020, an advancing racial equity movement in the department, which had many, many different components. And we wanted to look at this issue not as a hot topic, but an existential threat, and one that we had to be intentional about, and that we had to push a sustained effort behind over the long haul, because as we all know, culture is very, very difficult to change. Very, very difficult to change. One of the first things that we did was we created what we call a safe space for people to email to each other and up to the department. Obviously, that was anonymous, as well as a lot of informational materials on a SharePoint for people to kind of learn about what was going on, understand a lot of the history. I learned so many things in that period of time around like Bruce's Beach, for example, in Tulsa, that blew my mind. And I couldn't believe that I had not known that. So that was, I think, a really important thing. A lot was shared. We also had a number of town halls specifically focused on anti-racism and issues, not just in the community, but in the department. And I heard that loud and clear. My ears were ringing with the voices of people in the department who were really, really, really upset. And I think finally felt like they had the opportunity to speak. And they did speak. And we created a whole different set of newsletters to inform people. We connected with what are called our mental health transformation advocates, which are staff that are hired to help connect leadership to the trenches. We met with the unions to talk about these issues. And then we created two operational efforts. The first one, intergroup dialogue. And intergroup dialogue is really an opportunity for groups of people to have secured time to speak during the day with each other about what they saw and what they wanted. And we did that outside of the CPOE process because we wanted people to be liberated and to listen to each other. Because if we're not listening, we're not going to learn, and we're not going to be able to move or change in any way. And those are things that continue. And we created a whole group of intergroup dialogue experts who were trained up to facilitate that conversation. We also created an action learning community, which is a group that's still active today, that really looked into what are the things that are going on in the department and how can we plan a pathway forward. And after a significant amount of time working and creating a document with almost 100 recommendations to the department, which we've all read and we're looking to kind of prioritize, they came up with 3 very important bullet points. And I want to read them verbatim the way they were presented to me. Anti-Black racism has been long ignored, downplayed, and tolerated in DMH, with deleterious effects on Black staff members, Black clients, and other people of color. Second, a deep distrust towards leadership at all levels has developed after many years of silence and passive support for this condition. Third, at the center of the problem is a fundamental lack of understanding about how anti-Black racism and racism more generally operates and permeates the organization's culture. I take that really very seriously. I take it seriously in a way that I feel honored to get that kind of raw feedback. And I take it seriously because we have to do something about it. How can we possibly, as a department, and I like to call ourselves as a DMH family, function if we have that kind of internal dynamic? 4 domains were recognized as actions that we could move going forward. The first one was about awareness and acknowledgement. And the awareness and acknowledgement process continues, and I'm acknowledging it now, and I've acknowledged it in town halls, and I've acknowledged it in small panels in front of the department, because until we do, it's not going to be possible for us to move the needle. Secondly, as I had said, we're continuing that space, the safe space for people to continue to talk. And that's not easy. There are a lot of people with a lot of different opinions. But one of the reasons why it's been successful is that we've got, like I said, trained facilitators to help do the work and to focus on the well-being of our staff and the climate, the culture in which we work. We're also deep into looking at hiring and promotion within the department in a very specific way, and investment in the pipeline. One of the things that we did since I started here was we created a psychiatry residency at Charles Drew University, specifically for this reason. And I'd like to say that 3 years in, we're generating some amazing mental health providers for the public system. But those were areas of significant focus initially, and then executive accountability. And I think that ultimately that obviously comes to me, and I do welcome it. I will continue to try to do my best, but we need to be honest about what's working and what's not working. And we need to be honest about things that sound good or feel good or even are well-intentioned if they don't matter. And accountability is the way to find that out. And you got to have the courage to take it on when you're told that things are not working. And Lord knows I'm getting very familiar with that experience here in the Department of Mental Health in LA County. The last thing, which was the first recommendation that we really went after and adopted, was the creation of an RD unit. And this is something that I really, really had wanted to come out of the work, particularly by what has become our advisory council, our action learning community. And the idea was to find within the department a council of experts to identify an executive leader at a high level, and our chief of psychology has been appointed to lead as basically as an intermediary between what we're hearing around the department and the executive team, and a structure, a support system for that unit. So we now have an RD unit. And right away, before we even created it, we consulted with my wonderful colleague, Dr. Scorza, who's going to be coming up soon, to tell us about his learnings and his ideas. And he helped us frame it. Because I believe that if we as departments can put together infrastructure and commit to sustained efforts and connect up to the mothership of the county and the CEO, that's when we can start to impact the 110,000 plus staff members that operate LA County, and how we can start to influence the culture by consistent messaging, by courage, and by a clear commitment that's driven at every level, in many ways by the trenches, but also with the leadership of this board, which I have to say has taken on this and other efforts with amazing level of energy and commitment. The last thing I'll say is that I'm learning a lot in this process. I'm learning a lot of this process as a father, as a man, as a white man. And I'm really honored to have the chance to try to influence the system and to share whatever power and strength I might have in this role and with my background. And I do that humbly. And the group of people who have come together to form the Staff Advisory Council, working in the advisory, working with the RD unit, are like equity ninjas. They're like equity ninjas. And what they're doing is really peeling back all of the facade of the onion and saying, this is the deal. This is what we got. And these are the things that we think you need to do and you need to get behind in order to transform the culture in the Department of Mental Health, which has a long, long way to go. I think I'll end there. Again, I can't tell you how honored I am to have been invited. I've been with you before in person and I loved it. I look forward to doing that again. And thank you so much for this opportunity and for coming together on this topic today.
Now, Dr. Sharon, before we let you go, we do have a question. The question is, how can Lakea support you to help make the change in DMH?
Well, that's a great question. And I think it's really simple. I need to connect Lakea up with my equity ninjas, the RD unit, the Staff Advisory Council that basically provides me direct input on a regular basis. So let's do that. I mean, that's a really simple one. We also have a really wonderful consultant, Rigoberto Rodriguez, who's been helping to facilitate a lot of this work and is an expert in equity, and Dr. Demetrius Davis, who again is a consultant that's been working with us. So I'd like to bring together all these key people with Lakea, and then we can continue that as an ongoing effort, because the more voice that we have, the larger the platform, and the more diverse the experience, the better the information we're going to get, the better guidance we're going to get, and the more we're going to be able to move down the ball field.
We have one more question too, Dr. Sharon. It says, how do you provide a safe space for those who feel like they are being unfairly held accountable for their past generations?
Well, I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, the way I look at it, we're here today. Mm-hmm. And if we're not getting the memo about how much we need to look after each other and treat each other with respect and recognize what I started off with, which is our interdependence, and recognize that that's really, really important, not just for other people, it's important for everybody. And we as individuals, no matter what our history, are never going to flourish in a society, in a community, in a neighborhood, in a family that doesn't embrace the realities of our history, straight up.
Yeah. That's good.
Wow. One last question for you, Dr. Sharon. This is from Adjoa Jones. She says, how diverse is the RD unit? As well, how focused is it on the origin and purpose of the RD motion to focus on the racial traumas of Black people in Los Angeles County, including the workplace?
Well, what I call the ninjas, which is really the advisory council, is quite diverse. And it also in many ways was self-selecting. So we created this intergroup dialogue and this action learning community, and out of it sprung real leaders who were able to kind of tolerate different opinions, move the conversation, and inform the conversation. So it's a very diverse unit. We're looking to, as I had said, essentially become a satellite of the RD unit which is why I got together really early on with Dr. Scorza about what he was doing and how to not just charge the RD unit, but to how to structure it. I also will say, that we're a very diverse department, really from head to toe. And I'm not saying that we're where we need to be, but I think we're in a relatively good place to understand and become more aware and share information based on the composition of the RD unit and the department.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharon. We appreciate you for coming. And like the old saying said, it takes a village, and LA County is our village, and it's going to take the directors and everybody coming in together just to enact change in our system. So we thank you for coming, and thank you for speaking with us, and thank you for seeing the problem and addressing it. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Yes. And I give way to Tara right now.
Yes, again, thank you again, and we hope you're feeling better soon. My name is Tara Parham, and I'm the co-chair of the membership committee of Los Angeles County and the chair of the departmental rep of LaKea. And I am here today to introduce to us our keynote speaker, Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza. Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza currently serves as the inaugural executive director of racial equity for Los Angeles County. In this capacity, he is tasked with championing the elimination of structural racism while also promoting efforts to deepen the county's work on diversity, equity, and inclusion. Dr. Scorza's life's work is centered on building leaders who fight for equity in communities and schools. In his previous roles, as the executive director of Social Justice Learning Institute, a UC Regent, and the president of the Board of Education for the Inglewood Unified School District, he launched programs that help youth of color become social justice leaders and college graduates. He also helped pass policies that prioritize $160 million for student services across UC campuses and secured $350 million to support school construction for K through 12 schools. As a U.S. Navy Iraq War veteran and civic leader, he has received numerous awards and accolades, including being recognized as one of the 40 emerging civic leaders under 40 in 2018 and received the UCLA Recent Graduate Achievement Award in 2016. Dr. Scorza has been quoted in multiple publications, such as the New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Huffington Post, Los Angeles Magazine, and several podcasts. Let's put our hands and our waves together for Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza. Yay!
Thank you so much for that, Tara. I am just incredibly honored to be here with all of you this morning and to be in this space and be a part of the county family. I want to really acknowledge Supervisor Mitchell and her leadership and the leadership of our Board of Supervisors for having not only the foresight and courage, but really having a vision to help improve conditions for all of us here in Los Angeles, especially for Black folk. I also want to lift up the work that Dr. Sharon and his team has done, leading efforts in the Department of Mental Health. Even recently, we talked about an effort to support many of our Black community members and the needs that have emerged that have been shared with us and the ways in which we can do that strategically and thoughtfully. As a Black man with a Black mother and a Black father who grew up here in LA, I can tell you from personal experience how important it is to center anti-Black racism in the work that we do, right? Like the experiences that we have, the challenges that we face cannot be ignored, and they must be lifted up after hundreds of years of policies and practices that have led to the outcomes that we're experiencing. So I'm going to go ahead and start by sharing my screen and just, again, thank all of you for the opportunity to be here and to be in dialogue about these issues these issues we're discussing today. So I'm going to start by talking about what we're gonna cover, right? I want to contextualize our work a bit because I think it's helpful for us to situate this work that we're doing in the context of Los Angeles and to understand what that means for us as a county and how that leads to creating a policy agenda and where we can work together to do this. So it is no surprise to many of us, as you heard from Supervisor Mitchell earlier, that we're faced these many pandemics and that COVID has really exposed what many of us already knew, that we were facing economic vulnerability, that we were facing health vulnerabilities, that we were facing food insecurity, housing insecurity, and so many other challenges and disparities within LA that we need to do more to eliminate and close those disparities. As you can see here, Black folk are more likely to experience higher rates of mortality given our population size relative to other populations, more likely to experience rent insecurity and food insecurity and educational attainment challenges than many of our counterparts. And what that really means is that if we're talking about an anti-racist LA, we have to close these disparities. It's not just about changing attitudes and perceptions and perspectives. That's important to do. But at the end of the day, the material conditions, the outcomes we experience are what matters, because if our lives don't improve, we're not really living up to anti-racism. But we didn't get here overnight, right? It took generations for us to make the progress that we've made, but it's also taken generations to create the conditions. In many ways, declining employment and earnings have led to a growth in disadvantaged families, which has also contributed to stagnant educational attainment. But really what's important to note is that local, state, and federal policies have contributed to all of this. That it's the policies of our institutions that create the outcomes that we experience, which become intergenerational. So we see intergenerational disadvantage in our communities, often because of the decisions that institutions make that either contribute to or exacerbate the challenges that we experience in our communities. We've noted that there's been a rise in poverty and joblessness since the 70s, right? With the shutting down of factories here in LA, with the underprotection from violence as a result of over-policing in our communities, from policies like mass incarceration and the war on drugs that have taken out multifamily earners from our households, that have locked up many of our brothers and sisters and aunts and uncles and parents, like my father and my brothers and my cousins. These policies have concentrated many challenges that have been associated with poverty in our communities. So as a result of understanding the history and the relationship between our history, the position that we've taken here in the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Unit is that we must acknowledge the ecological and contextual factors that influence the outcomes we experience, the families, the neighborhoods, the schools, the public systems that we grow up in, the things that we start with in our lives, our physical health, our mental health, our cognitive development, the socio-emotional skills that we build that help us achieve these life course outcomes. Now, life course outcomes, right, are these institutionally defined milestones that we're supposed to achieve to make sure we have a successful life so that we can ultimately thrive. See, it's not just about surviving or being a safety net, which is often what our county is here to do. It really should be about thriving and helping to improve people's lives. But our choices are situated within the context of the environments that we live in. So you can't graduate high school if the high school and the schools that you went to have low quality teachers, or you can't access healthy food if the neighborhood you grew up in only has liquor stores with fast food or fast food restaurants. How are you going to get to go purchase fresh fruits and veggies if you don't have access to fresh fruits and veggies, so your choices are dictated by your environment, or if you don't have a well-paying job, then you're not going to be able to afford a decent or stable place to live, and you're more likely to be homeless, or you're less likely to access good health care. So these structural characteristics that exist often influence whether or not we're able to graduate high school and enter college, or pursue a post-secondary credential or a vocation or a trade, or to make sure that we are able to progress throughout school, or have stable housing, or maintain stable employment over time, and the type of employment that just doesn't get you by, but the type of employment that allows you to buy a home and get a car and go on a vacation with your family, right? Like, it's not good enough that we aim for the bottom. We need to aim for a quality of life. And when you often hear of many of our civil rights leaders, from James Baldwin to Dr. King to Malcolm X and others who are out there fighting the good fight, right? Bayard Rustin, they weren't just talking about, hey, we want to be quote unquote equal. They were saying it's not just about equality, it's about equity. It's about making sure that after hundreds of years of economic deprivation and exploitation, that Black folk get a fair shot and a chance to have good lives too. So when you ask me about the state of Black LA, in ARDI, we pulled this data. And in each of these categories, you will see that often there are disparities that exist for Black folks. So the green category, the green circle represents where African Americans are. Either the degree to which we are enrolled in pre-K or are chronically absent, or are able to participate in after-school programs, or have a need for certain services, the degree to which we're able to graduate, or the likelihood of us going to prison relative to our counterparts, the likelihood of us being able to graduate from college here in LA County, or the degree to which we're unemployed, the likelihood that we're able to earn an income that is sufficient to meet our living expenses here in LA County, or even the housing cost burden. Often, as Black folk, we are either at the top of the disparity or the bottom of the opportunity. So when you look even at our home ownership rate here in LA County, we are less likely to own homes than many of our counterparts. And these are the things that we must address. It is not, again, good enough for us just to talk about anti-Black racism. We must do something about these conditions and these disparities that exist, and address where they are exacerbated. Furthermore, we have the greatest infant mortality and morbidity rates, the greatest homicide victimization rates, death rates from coronary heart disease, and other factors here in LA County. So all in all, to contextualize this work, it's important for us to understand that neighborhood structural characteristics, where we grew up, the conditions that exist in our neighborhoods, the institutions that touch our lives, affect these outcomes. And in fact, the lack of economic opportunity, the lack of money, this should be no surprise, right? Because affluence is actually one of the most important factors to determine these outcomes. When we don't have enough affluent people, or people earning decent incomes in our communities, they are unable to sustain the institutions that strengthen outcomes in our neighborhoods. They're unable to sustain the clinics, we're unable to sustain the grocery stores, we're unable to sustain high quality schools. That actually the lack of affluence, not poverty, but the lack of economic opportunity, the ability to earn enough income so that we can sustain our public institutions that benefit everyone in the community through not only our taxes, but through our revenues and income that we're able to recycle in our communities. These factors influence our social support and stability. They influence whether or not we're able to transmit positive health behaviors, or we're able to be collectively efficacious as a community. Understanding these things will help us mediate challenges that others face in our community. So it's really important for us to address concentrated disadvantage by investing in our communities and building economic opportunity, as well as providing disproportionate investments in neighborhoods that have been historically disadvantaged. But folks, we didn't get here overnight. We just didn't. And I often talk about, people ask, well, how did we get here? And why does it matter that we focus on anti-Black racism? Well, because Black folk were exploited economically for hundreds of years to build prosperity for other communities. And that's not just the condition for Black folk. You see that with Asian American, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. You see it with Latino, Latina, or Latinx communities. We've seen it with other communities, but Black folk in particular, we've seen it with Native Americans as well for generations and time immemorial, because they were the first peoples of this land. But with Black folk in particular, our bodies were exploited. Their laws were created to restrict our opportunity, to segregate us, to remove the chance for us to even have a fair shot. And there are laws that are still on the books today, deeds that are still on the books today that prohibit and inhibit our ability to thrive and do well. So to root out these policies, you must focus on anti-Black racism, because the road to justice, as you heard from Supervisor Mitchell through the No Going Back report, LA, is through anti-Black racism, because the policies that were created in our society were done to help ensure that Black folk could not have opportunity. So those very same policies are affecting other communities. So Latinos and Latinas are also hurt by anti-Black racism. Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders are hurt by anti-Black racism, because those very laws, those very policies, those very practices that harm Black folk harm all of our communities. That's why we have to deal with anti-Black racism. And we deal with racism because it's about power. It's about relationships of power. It's about who has power, who can make decisions about others, who affects the outcomes of others. And even though it may be saturated and interwoven in every aspect of our life, it ultimately limits our self-determination and our ability to create change. So this comes from Racial Equity Works. And when we don't adopt an equity lens or a racial equity lens, we are not accounting for historical and present context. We are not able to ultimately affect those who are most impacted. When we take on a quote unquote race neutral or colorblind approach, which by the way came out of 1960s conservative ideology, anytime we talk about colorblind racism, right, we're assuming that there are positive outcomes for all, and that's not always the case. And when we talk about colorblind racism or being colorblind in our society, that comes from this desire to sort of neuter what many of our civil rights leaders had focused on when they said we need investments in our communities to catch up from the conditions and the backgrounds and the circumstances that were created, right? We needed disproportionate investments. So conservative ideologues said, no, we need to be treated equally. Everyone needs to be treated the same, because they did not want to put the resources into the communities that were most impacted by their policies. So when you look at the outcomes, by the time we turn the age of 40, Black folk are still considered amongst the poorest people in our society. We are less likely to move upward, to have upward social mobility relative to our white, Asian, and our Latino and Latina counterparts. Colorblindness is a problem because it ignores the way race structures life chances, and it reinforces racism by creating the illusion that we all have an equal chance, because we don't. If everyone is truly equal, then it's easier to blame people directly for the lack of their success. So we have to understand that race and racism are still important features in our society. And we have to undo these illusions that we're all starting from the same place, that we're all considered equal. So I'm going to skip this slide and try and get to what our Board of Supervisors recognize, because they acknowledge that anti-Black racism is something we must address. and created the Anti-Racism, Diversity, and Inclusion Initiative, and called upon us to develop a State of Black LA report, and called upon us to evaluate existing county policies, practices, and procedures and programs, as well as our operations, so that we can address racism here in our institution. But again, you must understand the difference between equality and equity. We must acknowledge that our systems and institutions have been intentionally designed to either benefit or exclude certain populations for so long that the outcomes that we experience may appear to be unintentional, those disparities I started with at the top of the discussion, but they're actually rooted in discriminatory practices and beliefs. Equity and equality may often sound alike, but they're not, because equality refers to the idea that each individual or group is treated the same, given the same resources, and expected to take advantage of the same opportunities, whereas equity, on the other hand, acknowledges that each person has different circumstances, backgrounds, and starts from a different place. And as a result, those differences matter, and systems must be balanced to distribute resources, power, and opportunity so that we can reach equal outcomes by treating everyone justly according to their circumstances. We do not start from the same places. I grew up in Watson, Inglewood. My mom struggled to make ends meet. My dad was incarcerated. It took investment from my teachers and people in my church and my community to help me get to UCLA in the first place. It took additional resources while I was in UCLA to help me graduate. It took additional resources while I was in my PhD program because I didn't have parents who could help me pay for college, and many of us didn't. And that's not the case. You know, that's not just the condition for Black folk. There are low-income white folk that face these challenges as well. Equity is about paying attention to people's life circumstances and treating them justly accordingly. And racial equity is about us getting to a place where race is no longer a factor in the outcomes that we experience. Because if we want to achieve racial equity, we must be anti-racist, which means that we have to target those policies and those procedures and those practices that have led to these outcomes so that we can redistribute those power and resources equitably. So here in ARDI, we're focused on providing resources and support for our departments and for our external county agencies, for our partners in philanthropy, for our CBOs to do this work collectively and collaboratively through a strategic planning process. But people have been asking me, and I'm going to put this slide up here because folks are like, what is ARDI doing? Why are you doing this? Or what aren't you doing? And I got to tell you, I can only list 22 motions on this slide today. There are actually 26 motions that we're working on right now. There's a lot of work that we're engaged in ARDI, and we're incredibly happy about that work and proud to take on that work. But I want everyone to know that we're taking on efforts in policy change, that we're working in efforts in workforce culture and climate, that we're taking on equitable resource investment, that we're addressing truth, racial healing, and transformation, that we're taking on efforts in child welfare and even efforts in justice. We're engaged in helping our departments align their ARP dollars with neighborhoods that are most impacted by the pandemic. We are charged with helping to carry out the board's vision to return Bruce's Beach to its rightful owners. We are charged with partnering with other departments to address the historic mistreatment of California Native Americans and address anti-Asian hate and Native Hawaiian and Pacific Islander bias in our county. There's a lot that we're doing in ARDI, and I think it's really important for folk to understand that there's work that we're engaged in, including the Committee for the Care First and Community Investment Act, as well as public safety realignment, to make sure that in all of these places, there's an anti-racist framework that's taking place. And by the way, we are up to 26 motions now. Because what we want to do is support positive life trajectories and prevent negative life outcomes. And because I see a lot of interest in the chat, I'm going to try and speed this up a bit so we can get to the Q&A. What we're focused on right now in ARDI is increasing positive life outcomes and decreasing negative life outcomes across these many domains: physical and mental health, housing, employment, social mobility, public safety, justice, education, and others. And we're focusing on areas that have large racial gaps, have a greater chance of improving outcomes in our communities, have a greater likelihood that they affect more people. And if we address them, we'll address other challenges as well. So for example, if we focus on high school graduation, then we must, by virtue of focusing on high school graduation, address school truancy. And the county has a significant role to play in educational attainment and opportunities. We've been working with our county departments to identify outcomes to improve life conditions for all of our LA County residents, and have been looking at the data to address those challenges, such as increasing stable employment, reducing adult lifetime imprisonment. And what we've done through planning, through vetting with our community, and we're still engaged in community outreach efforts, is landed on major life course outcomes that our departments have identified, that our community members have identified, and that we've gone back and forth on and have come to align ourselves with. So ARDI is developing a countywide racial equity strategic plan that will focus on increasing the number of households with greater incomes to address some of the challenges that I mentioned earlier, making sure that we can have stable full-time employment throughout the county, reducing lifetime imprisonment, reducing infant mortality, and increasing attainment of a post-secondary credential with labor market value, not just going to, and my sister went to ITT Tech, so I'm going to speak on this from personal experience, not just going to a private college where they promise you an opportunity to get a good paying job, but no, actually getting to a place and going to a post-secondary education taking advantage of post-secondary educational opportunity, like an apprenticeship in a trade or vocational school, so that we can ultimately improve outcomes. We have also developed a set of countywide equity principles to help guide project design in our departments. And these principles are centered on and focus on achieving these outcomes. But here are some of the things that I want you all to get bold about, Lakaya. Get bold about the history of what's happened in our communities, across all our communities. It's Black communities especially, but all of our communities. Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native Hawaiian, Mexican American, right? Hmong American. It doesn't really matter, because every single community in our society has experienced, the institutional challenges that have occurred from American policies and governance. But in particular, take heart, because advocates around the country have been fighting to address, for example, the destruction of Black communities, and they've taken on efforts to repair the harm. So in 1994, the state of Florida approved money to go to the living survivors of a 1923 racial pogrom that resulted in the deaths and dissemination of Black community in the town of Rosewood. We had the destruction of Sugar Hill because of the freeways here in LA County, right? There are moments that we're gonna have to really reckon with from our past. The Oklahoma legislature passed a bill to pay reparations for the destruction of Greenwood in Tulsa from the Tulsa massacre. In 2005, Virginia took on Prince Edward County and created reparations programs for scholarships and opportunities for young folk, right? These are all examples of investments in our communities and ways to repair the harm that was done for future generations, so we can ultimately transform the material conditions. So I lift these things up because you see Bruce's Beach is a start, but there's so much more that we need to do in LA County and throughout all of our cities and all of our jurisdictions. I want to thank you all so much for the opportunity to join you today, and I'll look forward to answering any questions you may have.
That was wonderful, Dr. Scorza. Thank you so much. We do have some questions in the chat, but before I address those, we have a couple of statements from members. Please forgive me for pronouncing your name incorrectly. At Joya Jones, she says, yes, when we focus on anti-Black, others do benefit as well. The recent example she gave was SB 65 and how it will benefit all pregnant women, and that the Momnibus bill was written based upon the racism against Black mothers and babies. That was from Ms. Jones. Monica says, Monica Lewis, while Black racism may affect others, we take the brunt of it all. There are opportunities for others that were not that we are not given. So those are two statements from a couple of members before I go into the questions. If you wanted to address those, I'll give you a moment.
I think that's so right. And I just want to thank you all, Joe, and others for lifting up those examples of policies, because that sort of targeted universalist approach, right? That's what that is. By targeting on the needs of those who are most impacted by a policy, it will help all folk, allows us to further address the disparities that exist. So I'm so glad to see the omnibus bill was passed and signed. And I think it's absolutely right. And it's high time that we take advantage of and pay attention to the needs of our mothers, especially Black mothers, who are more likely to face higher rates of infant mortality and mortality in general, and other challenges during pregnancy. I have to say, I'll just say from a personal perspective, I'm, as a husband with a father of two, and my wife now, who is a Black woman who is expecting, right? I've had to go to the doctor and advocate with the doctor, advocate for her with the doctor, right? We've had to say to the doctor, no, this is what she's experiencing. You need to make sure you take care of this. So not everyone has that support in their lives, and more people need that support. And our institutions need to be responsive to the needs of our communities, not just Black women, but all women, right? So I completely agree with that. I just want to thank you all for lifting those points up.
Great. Members, anyone on the conference, if you have any questions, please type them in on the chat and we will read them out to Dr. Scorza for him to answer. Dr. Scorza, if you can go back to that list you had, it was shaded in different colors. I think red at the top, and I saw green. So the question from Danny Gamage was, yes, the ARDI-related efforts. What are your 3 priorities from this list of 22 related efforts?
Well, my priorities are always going to be the board's priorities, and these are the board's priorities. But what we're focused on in ARDI are a couple of things. I think you heard Dr. Sharon say earlier, awareness. What we're focused on is completing our racial equity strategic plan, which will actually serve as the foundation for the countywide strategic plan. So that's the first thing that we're focused on. The second thing we're focused on is increasing the awareness of this work. And so I have our team working very diligently to address and develop sort of messaging and strengthen a narrative around anti-racism for LA County. And then finally, the third major priority that we have outside of what the board has established for us is making sure that we are able to build capacity for our departments to do this work. So we know that we cannot do this alone. Like, the departments have to take this on. And that means that the departments have developed and created their own equity action teams, their own ARDI units, their own idea groups, inclusion, diversity, equity, access groups, their own anti-racism, equity, and justice groups, right? Like the department's leadership around this is incredibly essential, because there's just no way in the world that we're gonna be able to do this by ourselves from within CEO across 35 plus departments. And I think those are our priorities, is building capacity and building the infrastructure. Because at the end of the day, we can, it's not about being flashy, right? It's about actually getting the work done. So if we don't have the capacity and the infrastructure in place to do that work, then it doesn't matter how much we say we're doing, you won't really see the effects of that. So our goal is to make sure that there's real material change within our departments and within our communities. And in order to do that, we have to both communicate how we're doing that, but actually build the tools and the resources for our departments and our employees and our external stakeholders and partners to be able to do this work.
Great. A follow-up to the ARDI-related efforts and your 3 choices. What rubric will you use to identify success with regards to your priorities?
That's a great question. I didn't share it today, but the racial equity strategic, so the rubric we're using will be related to the outcomes that people experience. So in other words, judge us by whether or not racial disparities are being closed. And I'm just laying it out, right? If we don't see improvements in people's lives, then we're not being as efficacious as we need to be. And I can't do it by myself. Again, I don't, Artie does, just so we're clear, Artie does not run programs, right? We coordinate, we assist the departments. So our success is the degree to which the work we're doing with departments is helping them close those disparities. It's helping to improve life conditions for all of our Los Angeles residents. And so that's what I hope to see. And it's going to take us some time. Look, we didn't get here overnight. I remember when I first entered graduate school, I was like, I want to see change in my lifetime. And one of my faculty advisors was like, look, man, we're working towards work that we, that will take us lifetimes to achieve, right? It took us 400 years to get here. I hope it doesn't take us 400 years to get out, but it will not immediately be resolved in 2 or 3 years. There's gonna have to be a level of patience, but also a level of diligence and commitment to this work over time. And you heard my bio earlier. This is what I came from. When I entered this work, I entered this work because my cousin was shot and killed in Watts on Baird Avenue, where I grew up right around the corner, both in Watts and in Inglewood. And I entered this work because my dad was incarcerated. I entered this work because my brothers were incarcerated. I entered this work because my other cousin Michael was shot on Crenshaw. I stayed in this work because my cousin Chris was killed last February in Mid-City. Like I do this work because I slept in my mom's car when we were kids, right? Those are the experiences that I bring with me, and that's the lens I bring with me. So having that experience for me, is driving my desire to ensure that no one has to suffer in this society that we live in. There's too much wealth, there's too much opportunity, there are too many resources for our children and our families and our communities to continue to go through that level of suffering. It is unnecessary, and it is unwarranted, and it is immoral. So I'm here to do that work, and I'm in it for the long haul.
Okay, we have quite a few questions coming in, and how I would love to address everyone's question. I am going to try to put these questions into one. So the first question is from Edward Yin. He is a part of the Afro-Asian Latinx Alliance. So we're going to put his question in to say, what can the Afro-Asian Latinx Alliance, as well as LaKeya, do to help Artie support the priorities? Like, what can both of our organizations do? Also fielded into that is, have you all reached out to department personnel officers? Yeah, so I just threw in 3 questions in one.
Sure.
Thank you, Ms. Victoria. Thank you, Edward.
Yeah, so I'll take the second question first. We have met with the DHRM leadership and representatives to talk about the work that we're doing in Artie. And we've developed a countywide work group called our Culture and Climate Work Group to help, which Tara is a part of, to help guide the work in that area. They're currently developing a workforce culture and climate survey, as well as a policies, procedures, and practices analysis tool, which needs to be strengthened. There's still some work that needs to be done on these tools, but our intention is to work with our personnel members, HR folk, officers, and team members to help examine and explore where culturally we can improve conditions for all of our LA County employees. That's the first thing. The second thing I will say related to what we can do together, I think we have an opportunity, and Edward, I'm so glad you raised that question, because I spoke with my team about this after the management conference. We have an opportunity to come together and design that. So what I believe is possible is for us to co-design the strategy that all of the employee groups can help create to support not only what Artie is doing, but for Artie to support what you're trying to achieve, right? You all have an incredible reach. You're able to speak both to internal folk and external folk. You're able to bring people into the county. And one of the biggest areas that the board has tasked my office with, or charged my office with figuring out, is where the policies and practices exist that are getting in the way of racial equity, and how are we ensuring that employees are able to promote, that they're able to take advantage of opportunities to progress within the institution, right? So if you look at the board motion, the board motion calls for an analysis of promotability practices and practices that prevent African Americans, especially, from advancing within county departmental career ladders. But we can do that for all of our populations and figure out what's getting in the way of opportunity, right? So those are two areas where I think we have an opportunity to really work together, and I look forward to having that conversation.
Great. Now, the last question is for me personally. You spoke about how African Americans are either sort of left out of the equation altogether in terms of moving up in society, or we're at the bottom, of opportunity. So me, I was that statistics. I was that hood statistics. I became a mom at 14, and it was just everything that goes in with teenage pregnancy I experienced. So my question is, how do you address the poverty pays? For example, I am an eligibility worker for DPSS, so I know this firsthand. We are rewarding people to stay poor. Thus, so meaning you get a welfare check, and for two people, you get almost like $600-700. But if you get a job, then your grant is going to automatically be reduced. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, it's a double-edged sword. You want to get ahead, you want to provide for your family, but you necessarily can't, because the money you need to support it's going to be, taken away from you. It's like, you take 100 away from me, I'm not getting a step up because I now have $100 less. So the question is, how do you address the poverty pays? Like, what can we do? And do you all have any plans to help change the welfare system?
That's a great question, Annika, and I really appreciate that. I would probably go a step further and frame it as, one of the things that I've learned is that there is dignity in work, right? And all of us want to experience it. We deserve to experience dignity in our lifetimes. Growing up as someone who also, my mom was on welfare at the time. We call them food stamps, right? They're EBT benefits now. I remember we were living in Gardena at the time. We got evicted from Inglewood, and we ended up moving temporarily to Gardena. And my mom was struggling. She was trying to, pay rent, and she was also trying to just keep a roof over our head, and our rent was just too much between her job and whatnot. And there was a certain point at which, if her job paid her more, then she was no longer eligible for those services, which meant that the more she would earn, if she earned more, then she could no longer afford rent. So there was this gap between, right, what she would be able to earn versus what she needed so that she can move beyond conditions of poverty. And to your point, it wasn't so much, I think, a reward for her. She wanted to be able to earn more, right? But the conditions and the situation and the material constraints of the workforce at the time made it almost impossible. So there are ways that I think our system can respond. We were given we were given a task by the board to take on a countywide effort to examine prevention. And one of the things that we're going to do in that examination of prevention is explore the policies and/or the barriers that get in the way for folk to live healthier lives and to move sort of up the social mobility ladder. So in other words, what I hear you asking is, what can we do to bridge the gap between the place that somebody's working their tails off 40 hours a week, 60 hours a week as single parents or as dual income households, or whatever it may be, so that they can ultimately move to a place where they no longer need to rely upon the system. And that is something that we're going to explore, which is why we made it one of our life course outcomes to increase the percentage of households earning income at 250% above the federal poverty level, because we recognize that very issue. And we're looking forward to our planning and data work group and others to help address the very strategies we need to employ. But I will have a much stronger answer for you by the time our racial equity strategic plan is done mid-year next year, because that's where we're going to develop the initiatives and talk about developing the initiatives with departments to address those issues, as well as what we'll need to do to create a policy agenda to address those issues as well. So there's multiple tracks that are underway. I just want to acknowledge that I recognize it, that we see it, but that we're currently in the middle of planning towards addressing challenges like that.
Thank you again, Dr. Scorza. What a wealth of knowledge you just gave us, and we really appreciate you. Really appreciate your time you put in. I know it's hard to hear those facts as African Americans, but we need to hear them, because without hearing them, we can't fix the problem. And one thing I took from you is it's not just about equality, it's about equality of life. It's about equity as well, thriving and improving people's lives. I love that. And I just want to thank you. I learned so much today. I know we have more questions, but we'll try to get those to Dr. Scorza in his own time. He could probably answer those in his own time. Thank you, Dr. Scorza, for being with us today. We're going to move on, and we're going to hand it over to Terry for a presentation.
Good morning, everybody. I am Terry Gillums, and I happen to be your LaKea Scholarship Chair. And I also would like to thank Dr. Scorza for what he was sharing, because I think it really lends itself into what one of the visions and the work of compassion that LaKea is trying to continue to onboard through our scholarship program. Yet he still said some things that are really alarming, which I think many of us really understand as it relates to the disparity for our children, and particularly those that are in our foster care system and in our probation systems, right? It's hard enough just being a parent that is working to be able to afford education. LaKea and our commitment, we continue to provide our members and our members' children with scholarships. I'm proud to say, I think I'm on the best committee that there is, because we are really trying to seed into folks and their ability to continue to do, and in some small way, provide them with support on their academic pursuits. And some of them are pursuing many other opportunities as well. In addition, we also provide supports to our children that are in our being served by the Department of Children and Family Services. And that has continued, as I am a proud DCFS employee myself. I thank LaKea and all of our members for continuing to contribute so that we can help those youth. This year, I am so proud to say that we have expanded into providing additional opportunities and for our youth that are in our probation system. Yes, so LaKea, shouts out to you for opportunities of contributing to the opportunity to seed into our probation youth as well. When I heard Dr. Scorza talk about really, he said, quote, really, this should be about helping to improve students' lives. And I thought, oh, wow, what an opportunity we have to continue to grow our program. And my effort here today is to also share with you who these students are that you've actually been able to help, who our members are, who we're actually able to serve. But in addition to that, to really ask you as well, to dig deep within ourselves to figure out what else can we do to support? How can we then increase the pool of funds in our scholarship program? You know, and we were talking about, and I was going to talk, and I'm going to share, there's this Giving Tuesday that happens in November on the 30th, but you don't have to wait till Tuesday, November 30th to give. You know, we continue to support efforts at the end of the year with tax write-offs and things like that, but you don't have to wait then as well. After really hearing what Dr. Scorza was saying, I am imparting upon us to really think deeply about how we can really bridge that gap that comes, unfortunately, for these youth who have dealt with so many traumas in their lives and experiences, and yet they are still plugging away in their pursuits to improve their families' conditions through education, right? But they need help. And the money that we provide does provide a little support, but we can do so much more. I think with our Lakeia membership, if we all contribute $100 in that, we'd have $100,000 to be able to provide scholarships for our foster youth and those in probation. I mean, it's just a little $100, right? So what can you do to be able to think? Let me help you think that through a little bit. When you go to Starbucks, put some money away for the youth instead, right? As well. Say if you spend every time I walk into Starbucks, it's a $15 thing because everybody got to get something. So let's think about ways in which we can then help support and build our scholarship opportunities for the youth and the children that we're trying to serve, in addition for the members and their families as well. And so it gives me such great pleasure to also share, and I just wanted, before I move on, to give shouts out to DCFS and probation, Kimberly Davis and her help and support of Lakeia to promote our scholarship program with the youth, as well as Lisa Campbell from the probation department as well. And so shouts out to them and their teams and their DPOs on the probation side who came out and said, I've got a couple of youth. If you have some money, they could use some support. And I'm just so proud to be a part of the network that's really trying to grow our Lakeia scholarship opportunities. Folks, there are also other things that you can do. I want to give a shout out to Yoli de Ramis, who is one of our department executive leaders from the Department of the Library. And she was able to, she bought a laptop and said, hey, I've got a laptop. Is there somebody out there who we know about that would be in need of one? And we were able to honor a probation youth from that as well. So there's so many ways in which we can seed into their academic pursuits and ways in which we can help support our youth. So I'm imploring upon you, you're going to be able to see in a few minutes all of our youth and our members who we were able to provide scholarships from. You'll be able to hear from them. Put in shouts when you see these youth. I applaud them. I applaud their energy, and I applaud where they're going in their lives. And this is just the start for them, as you all know, right? It takes a huge village to support the academic, interests and efforts of our youth. In addition to that, we do have one of our member scholars that's also a part of the people that are participating and watching. And that person I just want to acknowledge is Anika Washington. Yay, shouts out to Anika. She's a member's child who's at UCLA. Shout out to her as well. But what it does do for me, it gives me great pleasure, because in reading through all of the applications and all of the essays, and I continue to tell you next year, 2020, keep them coming. Folks tied their interest in our conference theme. And we were so excited that we decided that we wanted to celebrate by having one of our recipients of a scholarship this year be able to share her essay with you, Nicole Vick. Nicole is a student. I'm going to let her tell you what she's doing at USC, because it's so exciting. I don't want to give it any injustice at all. And we're just so proud. She happens to work for the Department of Public Health. So she's one of our own folks, y'all. And so a member of Lakeia, and I just want to celebrate her. And I'm going to turn this over to Nicole. And throughout the rest of the conference, we're going to intermingle opportunities to see our kids. So you all, Nicole Vick. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Terry. Thank you, Lakeia, for this opportunity. I am so honored to be here and to share my essay with all of you. And I actually am really excited that I followed Dr. Scorza, because I was sitting there and I'm just, shouting. And thankfully, my computer was on mute because I was having moments. A lot of what he talked about are actually really important public health concepts, things that I have been teaching in public health as a public health professional, as a professor for many, many years. I've talked about it extensively in my my first book. I don't know if you can see it. It's called Pushing Through, Finding the Light in Every Lesson. And actually on Tuesday coming up, I have a guided journal called Push Through 52 Weeks of Light in Tough Times. So a lot of what he said about I'm doing this work because this is who I am and my lived experience is very much why I am in public health, why I am focused on social justice, and how these books came to be. They're available on Amazon, esowan.com, the local bookstore here in South LA, on their website. And just really honored to have the chance to come to all of you today and share my my essay that I wrote for the scholarship. So I'm just going to go ahead and jump in, and I'm sure some of this will resonate with many of you. In 2018, I attended a racial equity training at work. And these types of trainings are common in public health as we strive to achieve health equity across the county of Los Angeles. This training was a bit different because it lit a fire in me and has compelled me to leverage my lived experience, work experience, and academic know-how to affect change in my workplace and in my community. During the training, the facilitator put up a slide actually very similar to Dr. Scorza's slide that outlined the disparities in American society. And the slide said something to the effect of Black people fail in every single system in society, or said differently, the society has failed Black people in every single way, and showed how Black Americans were behind in education, were overrepresented in the criminal justice system, overrepresented in the homeless population, lacked access to healthcare, and so on and so forth. The information wasn't new to me. I have seen this data before and know why the numbers are the way they are. But for some reason, the information hit me differently that day. And I found myself sitting in that room at 313 North Figueroa, both angry and sad. After all, the data was about me. It was about my family and my community. I am driven by a desire to make things better for my community, to reverse the information I saw in that training. That is why I was drawn to public health over 20 years ago, and why I believe in the concepts of public health so strongly. Even as a young teen mom, starting college in 1996, when I had no idea what public health or social justice was, I knew I wanted to do something to help my community. This has led me to teaching at the college level, sitting on various boards and commissions, and other community level work. I am starting, or actually I've already started, my doctoral program at USC's Rossier School of Education. And my area of focus is organizational change and leadership. I am deeply interested in finding ways to help the largest public health department in the country achieve health equity. We can't do this unless there is a workforce development program focused on anti-racism and diversity. We can't begin to dismantle the systems that disadvantage Blacks and other people of color until the workforce is prepared to address these issues head on. There has been great progress in our department with the Center for Health Equity, and our director, Dr. Ferrer's strong stance on naming racism as a public health issue. But there is much more work to be done, both internally and externally. 6 years ago, I worked in SPA 5 and 6, West LA and South LA, and did some research on whether staff were ready to address issues of health equity and racism. And staff did not feel like they had the tools to do this work. I was able to share my findings at the DPH Science Summit that year and actually won the award for Best Oral Presentation. However, I wasn't able to publish my findings at the time. My goal with my doctorate degree is to do more research of that type with the workforce on this important issue and develop a strong anti-racism workforce development program. The residents of LA County deserve nothing less. And that's it. And again, Dr. Scorza, if you're still on, if you got a job for me over there so I can help. Thank you all for the opportunity. Thank you, Lakea. And thank you again, Terry. You have all been so great.
Thank you, Nicole. And thank you, Terry. Don't this make you happy? Doesn't this make you guys happy? just hearing all this wonderful news, hearing how we are progressing here, hearing how we are making strides to make a difference in our community. I just love it. I just love it. I just love it. So we're going to see a scholarship video right now. One of our first scholarship videos. Or no, we're not. We're going straight to Dr. Davis. Thank you. So I'm here to introduce Dr. Muntu Davis. He serves as Los Angeles County Officer at the Department of Public Health. In his role, Dr. Davis serves as the department's medical expert regarding public health matters and provides guidance to the leadership across the organization. Dr. Davis comes to Los Angeles from the Alameda County Public Health Department, where he served for a director for 6 years and a health officer since 2009. So without further ado, Dr. Davis.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys moving me up. I'm sorry, everyone. I'm happy to be here. Wish I could go on schedule. However, I do have to get to another meeting that I have to present at sharply at noon. So I want to say that as I've been listening to these discussions, what I was originally going to present, I'm not going to present. And I want to share with you just some thoughts as we talk about all of the issues that we are all noting, all of the problems that we're seeing and what we want to achieve, just ways to sort of think about how you go about doing it. When we think about equity and trying to address racism and anti-Black racism, we have to understand what exactly we're talking about when we talk about achieving equity and addressing racism. And oftentimes when we talk about inequities, it's really something that is a difference between two groups, two areas that is based on some unfairness and or an injustice. And so as we think about what equity means, it means that there is just and fair inclusion into a society in which all can prosper, participate, and reach their full potential. And that's what it means when you address racism, that you take away that injustice, you take away the unfairness, and everybody can participate, prosper, and reach their full potential. And as Mr. Scorza mentioned, we're not all starting from the same place. And so that means that there must be targeted strategies to try to close the gaps that we're seeing. I want to mention a quote to you, and I'm going to ask you quietly to think about who said this. And the quote goes, and it's a little long, I will say then that I am not, nor have I ever been, in favor of bringing about in any way the social and political equality of the white and Black races. And there's an applause. That I am not, nor ever have been in favor of making voters or jurors of Negroes, nor of qualifying them to hold office, nor to intermarry with white people. And I will say, in addition to this, that there is a physical difference between the white and Black races, which I believe will forever forbid the two races living together on terms of social and political equality. And inasmuch as they cannot so live, while they do remain together, there must be the position of superior and inferior. And I, as much as many other men, am in favor of having the superior position assigned to the white race. Now think about who might have said that. I'll give you to the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. That was Abraham Lincoln in 1858. The same person that signed the Emancipation Proclamation. And so when you have this underscore of belief amongst different groups, I don't care who it is, that shows up as a difference that we don't see as much explicitly, but we see implicitly in a colorblind society. Those things still have impacts, not only on what we see and what we live in, but how we think. So as we start to tackle this, I want to keep 2 definitions in mind. When we talk about health equity, is that all community members reach their full potential, their full health potential. And when we talk about racial equity, race cannot be used to predict success. To achieve racial equity, we must target strategies to eliminate racial inequities and advancing success across all groups. Now, when we talk about inequities, it's really about those conditions that lead to disparate outcomes. And I want to caution you just on using data. Sometimes when we use data, we have a little bit, it points to something, but it doesn't always mean that it's what it actually is. You always have to break down data. This is why we always try to break down data by race. We always start at race and ethnicity. We always try to break it down by income. We always try to break it down by geographic area, because we want to see those differences. So I can tell you what a death rate is, but when I break it down by race and ethnicity and show you, and if I show you geographically, and you see where the disparities are, then you know where you need to have targeted strategies in order to close those gaps. And the goal is really to close the gaps while improving outcomes for all. It doesn't mean that we want to have one group start to have the worst outcomes. We want to close the gap while maintaining goodness and well-being for all. And that has to be done with targeted strategies, again, to close the gaps, understanding why those gaps exist. But what it also means is that we have to focus on changing policies and practices, as well as our own institutions and structures, to improve the conditions in addition to providing services. Services can address the conditions, but if we don't improve the conditions, the services won't ever be good. Now, we all have bias, and we have to understand that. And that bias can't be used in order to disproportionately impact somebody, especially in a negative way or a positive way. So we have to understand that that bias is there. But I want to say that every time racism comes up, it freaks people out. But people need to understand that the intent to discriminate is irrelevant. People talk about systems doing just what they do, and they often do things invisibly, but they also reinforce disparities and inequities. And as was mentioned earlier, you can see this across a number of different sectors, a number of different aspects of our society, whether it be transportation, education, housing, employment, the environment, healthcare, and even civic participation. That's the battle that many states are having right now. Voters and who can vote? What do they need to have? Where can those voter boxes be? Those are all systems and practices that can create disparities and inequities. And so I want everyone to understand, as we talk about racism, there are 3 levels of racism. There's that individual racism. That has to be addressed. There is the institutional racism, which is the policies, practices, and procedures that work better for one group, typically for white people, than they do for people of color. Again, it's often unintentionally done or inadvertently done. Doesn't matter. It needs to be addressed. And then there's the structural and systemic racism. And that is at the level where there are public and private institutions that are interacting, combining to create a system that produces barriers that perpetuate racial disparities. So it could be that Group A over here does one thing, Group B does another. They work together in that system. And the 2 things that they do can add up to create a system that further pushes the disparities that we see. And so oftentimes in public health, we're trying to show how health outcomes in relationship to social determinants of health, all of those things that I mentioned, transportation, housing, education, housing, and the conditions are impacting health status. It's not enough just to look at the numbers. We have to look at understanding what are the conditions that are leading to it. And those conditions are created by biased beliefs, whether it's a narrative about race, whether it's a narrative about income, whether it's a narrative about gender, immigration status, you name it. That narrative can often drive policy and practice of the institutions and the organizations and the businesses, which create the systems that then create social inequities. The differences that we see in neighborhood conditions, the social and physical things that happen, the racial segregation that we might see, the workplace conditions, the housing conditions. All of that is what we call our community and our society. That's the physical environment in which we live. Those conditions create greater risk factors and greater exposures, whether it be smoking, lack of nutrition, lack of physical activity, exposure to violence, exposure to chronic cumulative stress. That's how it impacts the individual. And then that's where we start to see the data and the disparities, whether it be in disease and injury or in death and mortality. Some people like to talk about the policies and practices and the social inequities as the inequities leading to the disparities. those unfair things that happen upstream that lead to the disparities or the differences that we see downstream. Again, those conditions are created by policies and practices of individuals or institutions rather. And those are created by the beliefs that those institutions hold or the individuals that run. What we want to do is we want to have things that are not transactional. We want to have things that are transformative. And transformative means policies or practices that cut across multiple institutions, that shifts efforts towards proactive solutions, not just addressing the issue, proactive solutions to try to prevent them. Solutions that alter the ways institutions and existing structures operate, that shifts the cultural values and the political will to create equity. And so it's not just leaving the existing structure in place. It's not just solutions that transact within institutions to get a short-term gain. It's not things that just help individuals negotiate existing structures. And it's not individually based. It's broader than that. And as we look about how we try to achieve equity, we have to have tools for looking at equity in policy and in budget. We also have to have inside and outside strategies. There are those that are inside that are the deal makers. They can move the folks that are the leaders in order to do the things that are needed. And then we have to have outside strategies. That's the community that's led by the emotion, that knows what's right, knows what's right for them, and knows the impact of whatever we do in terms of policy or practice. We must have strategies that are more inclusive in terms of engagement. We must also have strategies for communicating about equity, in particular about race and equity. And that must be in the forefront of what we talk about. That moves us from having such a portrait view in terms of looking directly at the person to having a landscape view, looking at the conditions, whether it's in the past history, how you grew up, what you were exposed to that may have impacted your grades or your opportunities at that time, to seeing all of that, not just saying you who you are right now, and providing those supports that can come up and help you achieve and others achieve and the community achieve and close those gaps. Now, I want to give an example of how we frame the discussion in that way. So if I start out and say, everyone needs affordable and reliable means of transportation, and then everybody most likely would agree with that. But then I counter it and say, for 2.2 million people who don't own or have a car, access to a car, public transportation is a lifeline to jobs, education, family, friends, healthy, affordable food, recreation, and medical care, all of which are essential to individual health and well-being. And then I follow that up to say, increase funding for transit service, particularly bus service, inside of whatever the transportation plan is to ensure affordable and reliable transportation for everyone. In general, most funding goes to a subway system, not the public transportation system. The public transportation system, the bus system, is used by more of the folks that are experiencing the negative outcomes that we're seeing in terms of our society. So we have to think about how we frame these discussions, but in either case, we need to go for system-wide and institutional change in order to close the gaps that we're seeing. And I'll stop there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Davis. We appreciate your time. We appreciate you just speaking with us today. I love how all these things work together to help us. Health, the mental state, everything works together to help us. If you have any questions for Dr. Davis, type them out. We'll make sure he gets those. And we're going to now cut to our scholarship videos.
Hello, my name is Adako Okori, and I'm really grateful that I was one of the people selected to win this scholarship. I'm currently schooling at the University of California, Santa Cruz. I am a third-year student. My major is MCD Biology, which is short for Molecular Cell and Developmental Biology. Once I finish with my undergraduate degree here at Santa Cruz, I hope to pursue a master's degree to become a PA, and I want to end up working in the healthcare field as a PA. Being able to accept the scholarship really means a lot to me in terms of just me being able to not worry too much about paying fees or paying for books or tuition. It will really help me a lot. But to summarize everything, I really I really, really thank you guys for allowing me to get this scholarship because it really means a lot to me. It's gonna really help me out. So thank you.
Hi, my name is Anika Washington, and I just want to thank LACAEA and the Scholarship Committee for choosing me to be a recipient of this year's scholarship. I am a second-year student at UCLA, and I'm working on my Master in Public Health and Healthcare Management. And so this summer, I interned at Kaiser Permanente in their consulting services department, and I worked on different projects related to women's health and healthcare disparities. And so after I graduate, I want to continue serving my community and vulnerable communities and ensuring that they can have equal and equitable access to healthcare. And so I really do appreciate you for choosing me to receive this scholarship. It really does help alleviate some of the stress and some of the work that I have to do this upcoming quarter. So I really do appreciate it. And one more time, thank you so much.
All right, it's so good to hear her. She's getting a scholarship, but she still wants to give back. That's her dream. She wants to give back in her profession, and I love to hear that. Again, if you look in your chat, you can donate to the scholarship fund. Delora put some information in there how you can donate and help with the scholarship fund and our other programs with LaKea. Also, we have some gift boxes. If you are interested in one of our gift boxes, they are $25, we can send you that. Just respond in the chat and we can get that to you. We would love to send you one of our gift boxes. Right now, I'm gonna introduce Mary Calhoun. She's a retiree chair, and she's gonna give us some information.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Marielle Calhoun. I am a LaKea lifetime member, and I'm also the current chair of the LaKea Retiree Committee. And it is my pleasure to present to you our honorary lifetime retiree members, Victoria Pipkin Lane, Alice Parker, and Jason H. Williams. So please, let's congratulate them for their new lifetime membership status. It's so exciting. So I believe we have a few remarks from Victoria Pipkin Lane. Are you there?
Yes, I am.
Oh, welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much, LaKea, for this honor. I am humbled by it. I am so proud of LaKea and the way they have just played it forward with this association. You've grown, you continue to grow, you reach new heights, you're innovative. And I must say, you know, we started out with $250 for our foster kids for scholarships. So I am so proud that that commitment to our foster and probation youth continues. I love you, LaKea. It's a great conference. I'm so honored and humbled by it.
Thank you, Victoria.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank my retirement committee, my co-chairs, Nolan and Yvonne Miller and Cynthia Machin. And I especially want to thank the LaKea Executive Board for supporting our request to honor these members to the next level of lifetime retirees. You know, these people have been so passionate and so supportive over the years before we were an association, and they continue to support us even after they've retired. So I'm really excited about their elevation to retirement status. So thank you very much, and back to you, Daryl.
Thank you, Mary. Appreciate it. We have a couple more scholarship videos we want to show you.
Hi, my name is Aja Welch. First, I want to thank LaKea for giving me this opportunity. I just graduated high school. I want to pursue becoming a physician assistant. I've always wanted to work at Kaiser, so hopefully one day I can get in. But to start, I've already enrolled at Rio Hondo Community College for fall classes to start my prereqs, majoring in biology. I'm planning on starting an EMT course at Rio Hondo as well. Just so I could gain experience in the field and have a job while I'm in college. When I graduate from Rio Hondo, the plan is to transfer to a 4-year college and apply to a PA program. This scholarship money will help me further my education by helping me get my textbooks and my uniforms and everything that I'll need for work. Once again, thank you.
Hi, my name is Kiana Smith, and I'm one of the recipients for the African American Employees Association Scholarship. And first I wanted to say, look at my campus, it's so pretty. I'm really up here all the time, even after school, because I really love the campus and the energy it gives. You know, I love being able to learn and, you know, having study buddies and paying for a $4 drink because you drunk your water. I love these kind of things, and it wouldn't be possible if it wasn't for help like this. I really do thank this scholarship, honestly, because the books and the classes, but I really do appreciate all the help that I get. It is very, helpful. I wanted to say thank you, and also thank you because I get to finish the promise I made to my mom. I really do appreciate having this opportunity, and I wanted to say have a good day, and yeah, thank you.
Y'all see how happy she was? We was watching this video last night, and Mary's like, do you see the joy on her face? Say it like you said last night, Mary. You see the joy?
I get excited when I really see videos like this, because here are young people who have a vision, but they don't necessarily have the support that they need to realize that vision. So when she talks about her campus, I mean, this young person is so excited just to be in the camp, just in the campus environment. Something she didn't think she would experience. She's talking about her books and her classes. So this is what makes our scholarship program, so worthwhile, where we get to actually see and experience, along with these young people, them actually pursuing their goals. So I did mention that how adorable is she? I'm just so excited for her, because you can tell she is genuinely experiencing her academic experience that she didn't think she would be able to have.
Mm-hmm. And you'd be surprised how a lot of young people, just worrying about money, they will decide not to go to college. And this scholarship will be a jump and say, hey, I can really do this. And I just really thank Lakea for doing that for these young people, just getting this scholarship, and they are just one less worry they have to worry about. And it's a beautiful thing. So we're going to have our next speaker right now. And you guys are in for a treat. We kind of heard a little bit of his presentation last night, and I was like, wow, that's some good graphics and good information. He is none other than Ms. Sewell Davis. He works for the Internal Services Department for ISD in LA County. He was previously the Chief General Manager of Administration and Finance Services for over a year. He then promoted to Chief Deputy Director and served in that role for a couple of years. He is now the Director of ISD and has been for a year and 4 months now. Yeah, give him a hand for that. He also worked for the Department of Transportation for LA County for over 11 years and other branches since 1994, over 30 years of service. That's awesome. He has degrees from California State University, Long Beach, and a master's degree from the Annenberg School of Communication at USC. Please welcome Director Sewell Davis.
Thank you all. Selwyn Hollins here. First of all, I do want to acknowledge a lot of great speakers, a lot of good information. I really encourage everyone to embrace what you've heard today and share it. I'm going to talk a little bit about the digital divide, because that directly impacts communities of color. The digital divide is the economic, educational, and social inequalities between those who have a computer and internet access and those who do not. Many of you saw when COVID hit, the impact it had on the school system, but I can assure you it goes well deeper than that. Here in Los Angeles County, we've lost more small businesses, particularly in the African-American communities, during COVID-19 than anywhere else in the nation. They closed shop. A lot of it could have been addressed with the technology. So today what I'm going to do is share with you some information and also show you things that are happening right now that you, this organization, the people you know, can get involved with to take advantage of to what we refer to as deleting the divide. So often you hear the word bridge the digital divide. Why build a bridge if it already exists? When you build a bridge, you have to plan it. You have to maintain it. You have to cross over something. It suggests separation. People fall off the bridge. They end up under the bridge. We don't have to build anything. Just delete it. So at this time, I'm going to share with you a map of Los Angeles County. What this map shows are the digital divide. The map to your left, these maps are built off of US Census data. On the left, the magenta colored areas are areas within Los Angeles County where 20% or more of the households lack internet access. Overall in Los Angeles County, there are roughly 182,000 households that don't have a computer and over 365,000 households that lack internet access. The reason for the lack of internet access is primarily based on a couple of things. There's the infrastructure issue, but the main reason is affordability. And also there are many companies that demand things such as your social security number, credit checks, and other things that create limitations on internet access. The map in the center is the average household income per year within Los Angeles County. The red areas are households that earn less than $50,000 a year. Living in Los Angeles with less than $50,000 a year, family of 4 or more, is extremely challenging. As you can see, with 1 million households in this predicament, it overlaps where the digital divide is occurring. And then the map to the right represents the predominant racial group within Los Angeles and the areas. And again, you can see areas where there are people of color are the predominant areas where they lack internet access. Now, what I'm able to do with these maps is, so the green area, since as you can see here, the green areas are areas that the predominant race are Black. If I click on, I'm gonna slide it over a bit, okay? Now you see where on the map to the right, the green area are predominantly Black families live, and then on the far left are where the hardest hit digital divide areas are in magenta. If I click on one of these census tracts, okay, what it will do is it will pop up the number of households in that census tract. Let me find one more. Let me get right around, let's see, maybe, let's go right in here. If I click on one of these census tracts, what it shows me are the number of households in that census tract. Okay, it shows me the households that have no internet connection, the number of households that don't have a computer, and the median household income. Okay, and of course the predominant race. So let me zoom in a little bit more to get a better picture here. Let's try here. So here's a census tract where we have 2,000 households in that census tract within Los Angeles County. 28% of the households have no internet connection. 11% have no computer. And the median household income is $45,000 a year. These maps are available on our Delete the Divide website. So I'm gonna jump right into that and I'm gonna stop sharing at this time. Delete the Divide, what that is, you know, when everything was hitting with COVID and we saw what was happening with the schools and so forth, you know, it was a really difficult time. But beyond that, after the George Floyd incident, it really hit home about the disparities that are existing. And there were many people that spoke, wrote letters, did different things. And I couldn't bring myself to writing a letter or just speaking on it. Because of my experiences in life, I've witnessed and seen things that most people will never see or experience in their lifetime. And I decided to use my position and my platform as director of ISD to approach the Board of Supervisors and say, let me do something more. ISD is known for supporting other departments. We really don't get out into the communities, but I felt there was a need based off of all of our experience and knowledge. So they approved a motion that led to the creation of what we call Delete the Divide. That is available on deletethedivide.org. What Delete the Divide does is it empowers youth, young adults, and small businesses in underserved communities that are suffering from the digital divide. We have partnered with the IT industries, academic industries, public organizations, community-based organizations to provide a hub to give direct access to things that already exist. We are offering for youth ages 12 to 24, 3 pathways. There's a pathway where we will provide you with information and support, direct support, so that you can pursue post-secondary education, and some of our partners are offering academic scholarships. The second pathway for youth is gainful employment. We have partners that have provided, for example, right now, we have 1,000 scholarships from Google and from Facebook to earn an IT certificate. Generally, you pay thousands of dollars to do this. We have them for free. What this does is you need no prior experience or education. All you need to do is have the will and the discipline to complete the self-paced programs. After you complete it, it can take 3 months to 6 months to complete. Once you complete it, you are eligible to compete for jobs that start you at $50,000 to $70,000 a year. This is what people outside of these communities know about. Now, all you have to do is complete it. Once you complete it, if you go through Delete the Divide, Facebook and Google, each you would have the opportunity to interview with them, but they also have over 200 partner businesses and corporations that you can potentially interview with and get a job as well. Okay. The third pathway for the youth, age 12 to 24, is entrepreneurship. Now, in this day of technology, you find young people earning, I don't know how they do it. You ever watch them? I don't know how they make money on TikTok, but they make money, right? Well, we have partners that will take youth from idea, provide seed money, and help them start a business. As young as 6th graders are starting businesses. They coach them, they guide them. That is right now today. For small businesses, what we do is we want to get them an internet presence, whether it's social media, whether it's e-commerce, et cetera. And what we have for local small businesses is an opportunity to not only get direct contact with these companies to get the support at no cost. By the way, all of this is no cost. It's absolutely free, okay? But we are also working so that we have a group that will do an assessment of the small businesses, tell them what they need, help guide them, and then get them those technologies in order to get the job done. And that takes about roughly 5 months, okay? Then they monitor their success to ensure that they have a pathway for success. We have that right now. The reality is, and that's why I've mentioned Delete the Divide. The reality is this has always been there. The challenge has been people didn't know about it, okay? You saw the maps. If you go to Playa Vista, it's a lot out there. And then you go 2 miles to the east and it's a whole different experience. Why is that? And that's what we refer to as digital redlining. The other thing outside of Delete the Divide, and again, that's deletethedivide.org. It is from the county. There's no cost. You just have to live within LA County and you have to live within one of the communities that I showed you is heavily impacted by the digital divide. The other program is utilizing existing resources and infrastructure to provide access, internet access to people today. In August, the board put forth a motion and gave me 30 days to come back with a plan. And we delivered on that. And this week, coming up on Wednesday, we will be presenting it to Ops Cluster. We have 3 different plans or options for the board to consider that can provide internet access to underserved communities at large scale to as many as 300,000 households that currently don't have the internet. You need the internet to apply for jobs. You need the internet to have counseling. You need the internet to do your homework. You need the internet to do just about everything in your life. But when you have over 300,000 households without the internet, how can they even have a chance? And so that's what it's about. So if you have time and you want to come to Ops Cluster, it's a public meeting and you're welcome to make public comments. That will be at 2 o'clock this Wednesday, the county's Ops Cluster, and we will be presenting that. And not only are we talking about utilizing existing resources and infrastructure, we're talking about starting it this calendar year, 2021. There's a lot of planning going on. There's a lot of ideas, but the existing, everything you need already exists. And how do we put it into action? So I'll leave that with you. The one other thing I will say is it's not just for kids, for the programs we have just for youth in school. We are also working with Justice Involved, formerly incarcerated youth, and transitional age youth, because they need the support just as much as everyone else. And it's very difficult once you've been justice involved or have been incarcerated to get a fair share. But through technology and deleting the divide, it is the great equalizer. So thank you. That's what I have for you today.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Why build a bridge when one already exists? I love that. I love that. And deletethedivide.org. Y'all remember that? Write that down. I am in IT myself with LA County. Had I known that information when I was younger, I would have jumped on that quickly. That makes a huge difference, guys. A huge difference. And look that stuff up and take advantage of it. That's really awesome. Thank you for letting us know about that, Mr. Hollins, and we appreciate you for coming today. I see Keith Knox is still with us. He's with the Treasury Tax.
One, we did have one question in the chat.
Sorry.
My apologies. That question is, and I believe he may have already answered it, but I'll ask it again. Could you please address not just access and building a bridge, but quality of access and internet in the marginalized communities? Cell service and internet service is extremely slow depending on what areas you go into.
Absolutely. And that's part of what the utilizing existing resources are. So what the private companies do currently is they have tiered pricing. They can easily provide the high-speed, reliable internet, but their business models suggest otherwise. So what we're proposing with utilizing infrastructure is, one, negotiating with them to get the best rates possible. Two is public-private partnerships. And I'll be talking about that on Wednesday. There are ways to provide that high-level, high-speed upload and download speeds at a much higher rate at extremely low cost. And then the third option for the board to consider is a county-owned municipal broadband service. And that's being done in other places throughout the country. It is, and if we did it on mass scale, it would be a game changer. Then everybody gets high speed, no questions asked, no differentiation, okay? So that's one thing. The other thing I would say on that is, believe it or not, there are ways that you as an individual could help you could help by making sure that when the companies tell you what their rates are, you know what you're getting, because a lot of times they will charge you for services you don't use. They will have one rate and then it balloons, it doubles or triples a few months later. So you have to pay attention. Regardless, no matter where you are, you have to understand that you have as much right and your money is just as important as everyone else. But what we're going to try to do in LA County for those that are most impacted is you don't have to worry about the cost. We're going to help you out the next couple of years and build something that everybody can live with. And that's what we're really talking about here. It's time, again, to delete that divide. We can't talk about it anymore. If we don't provide access, people are it's exponential how far you'll be left behind.
Oh, thank you. Now, one more question, because they just came in as you were answering the first one. The first question is from Amira. Could you please provide contact and link for the OPS cluster meeting this coming Wednesday? Also, how can we access more information about technology and internet? That's 2 questions, one from Vicky and one from Amira.
Okay, so yes, I can provide the ops cluster. I'll look that up and add it for everyone. The second thing is on internet access. If you go to deletethedivide.org, we do have information there, but we also have a team that can assist with some of that. Part of it is, let's be honest, the companies provided, like for example, to the schools, they gave Chromebooks and hotspots, but they made a profit, and yet did anyone really benefit? What we're talking about is empowering you to understand when you have the internet, it's not just a matter of having access to the internet, it's understanding what it can do for your life, how it can guide you, how it can create opportunities for you. So that's why it's very important to know what you're getting, because if you don't, I'm telling you, these companies, there's no business interest in providing high-level access to a lot of people. But if you go to our site, we do have references on how you can get low-cost internet access, different programs if you need additional funding or subsidies for internet access. We do have information for that. These sites have been around for a while. We're just trying to delete the divide to put it right in front of you so you don't have to look and search. Everything you need, if you start there, we can provide that, but we also have staff who can assist if you have questions, you write to us.
Thank you again, Mr. Hollins. County-based broadband, that's huge, you guys. That is really huge. And knowing what you're getting, I don't know how many times I go over someone's house and help them with their computer access, and I'm like, why are you paying this much for just getting this kind of service? And it really does make a difference. Thank you again. Thank you for the information, and we appreciate you. Y'all give them another hand clap. Keith Knox, I just thank you for staying with us, and I just wanted to see if you had a word you wanted to say to us, or.
Sure. I thank Selwyn. That's some great information, and the other department heads and presenters. I think Supervisor Mitchell, hit something very important in terms of lifting each other up. I know that's what your group is always focused on, and I've always appreciated being involved and invited to events like this. It's really important. And I take these messages back to my managers and staff as well. But Supervisor Mitchell talked about good government jobs, which we have and we all appreciate, I believe. I was working on a article recently for Management Council's newsletter, just reminding folks how important it is to be informed about LACERA, how important it is to be informed about Empower, our 457 plan, our 401 plan, if you have access to that. DeJuan Bolton asked me a little while back about maybe doing something on the financial side for your members in terms of a presentation. And I'm looking forward to doing that if it's something you're interested in. But be informed, share with staff about the importance of understanding your retirement benefits, your 401, 457 benefits, because that's a way you can bridge divides. That's the way you can lift each other up. That's the way you can be secure in your retirement and happy like Victoria is in her retirement. So that's my plug, and I appreciate the invite today, and the information was fantastic.
Thank you. Thank you for being with us. Just in case you don't know, Mr. Keith Knox is the director of the Treasurer Tax Collector. So thank you for being with us today. And we're going to see some more scholarship videos. I love these.
Hello, my name is Mia Moore. First off, I would just like to thank you guys so much for the scholarship that you guys are actually giving me. Honestly, I've just been praying to God about everything, like with money in general, and what this scholarship be rewarded to me is honestly a blessing, and I'm just so thankful for you guys. Thankful for reaching out, thankful for giving me like the opportunity, like just I can't really like say like words, and I'm sorry for like stuttering, I'm kind of nervous, but thank you so much. And I just wanted to tell you guys that I'm going to Cal State LA. I'm going to be studying psychology so I could become a therapist, and I'm going to pursue that. And thank you so much once again. And this money will come a long way for college. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Deja Williams, and I'm making this video just to give a warm and big thank you to the Los Angeles County African American Employee Association for providing me with the scholarship towards my education. The scholarship means a lot to me because throughout my high school years and my college years, I've been working really hard towards my education and bettering my education and living. So therefore, I'm giving a very big thank you to everyone who has helped me in receiving this scholarship and everyone who has helped me provide the right needs and wants that I always request. And just a very big thank you again to the people on the inside who has helped me receive this scholarship. I would say for anyone else going to school or anything like that to just keep going, don't give up, and just always try to better your education, and just to know that there are people that want to help. So again, thank you so much to the association and to everyone who has helped me get this scholarship, and you guys be safe.
You know what? If seeing these young people don't help you make up your mind about supporting LaKay, I don't know what will. That just makes me want to support this organization more and more, just helping them. Let's see a few more scholarship videos.
Hi, my name is Lenice Jackson, and I just want to say thank you to the Los Angeles Community African American Employee Association for the scholarship. And this fall, I will be attending UC Merced and majoring in psychology. I just want to say thank you to you guys for really helping me out. And I came a long way from proving people wrong. They were thinking just because I was in the foster system, I was not going to finish high school. I was going to end up like my parents. And, you know, I had to push myself and really push hard for me to be able to be who I am today and going to where I'm going today. And I just feel like the journey's not over. You know, this is just a new chapter. I have many more chapters in my life to go through. And I'm just really thankful for you guys to help me with my next chapter that I'm going into, and that you guys have a blessed one, and we can do everything, and I can do everything that I put my mind to. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Amir Jenkins. I'm 18 years old. I live in San Pedro, California, and the college I will be attending is Los Angeles Harbor. The major I will be doing is business. The reason why is because I want to do a career in plumbing. I want to do a career in plumbing. I want to go to trade school for 2 years. And I'm just really thankful for the Los Angeles African American Employees Association for the $1,500 award. And thank you. That's it.
Good job. I know we're so used to hearing psychiatrists and all that kind of stuff, but this guy said he's going into business so he can go into plumbing. And that's awesome. He wants to make sure that his business is ran right and that no one can take advantage of him. So he's going into business, but he wants to do plumbing. And I love that. It doesn't sound glorious, but I think that's a glorious job. Just anybody who wants to work, any young person who wants to work, I think that's glorious. And he's doing it the right way. So my hat's off to him. Good job. Next, we're going to play some Save the Dates. Dolores is going to play that for us. Now, next, we're gonna do some raffles, right? Mr. Laura? So we're gonna do some raffles. Anika's gonna get that done for us. And Anika, remember, you know, we're like brothers and sisters, so remember me when you do the raffles, okay? Thank you.
All right, so my apologies, everyone. So we have the wheel spinning. As soon as it finishes spinning, I'll have a name.
So let's cut to Barbara at this time while we pull the wheel up. We are going, as everyone know, early birds, we have a grand prize of a computer, laptop that is, and a printer. And we have some more printers that we'll be getting out as soon as we get the wheel up for those lucky winners, because Lakea is dedicated to deleting the divide. But at this time, we'll go ahead and have our closing remarks by our Vice President, Ms. Barbara Watts.
Thank you, Delora. Good afternoon, everyone. I cannot believe that our wonderful time together is coming to an end. I have been enlightened, inspired, and encouraged. I am so hopeful, and hopefully that you were, after hearing our illustrious speakers. On behalf of Lakea, our President Pauline Ogenihowo, and the Lakea Executive Board, we extend a heartfelt thank you to the Honorable Congresswoman Karen Bass, Holly J. Mitchell, Board of Supervisors, 2nd District. Thank you to today's keynote speaker, Dr. D'Artagnan Scorza, Executive Director of the Los Angeles County ARDI Initiative, Dr. Mdutu Davis, Chief Director of Department of Public Health, Dr. Jonathan Sherwin, Director, Department of Mental Health, and Selwyn Hollins, Director, Internal Services Department. Thanks to all of you for sharing your insights, your strategies, and visions regarding the current state of Black Los Angeles County and your hopes and encouragement for the future of Black Los Angeles County. We also extend our warm thank you to the Los Angeles County Department heads and to the Lakea Executive Advisors who have supported Lakea and continue to do so and extend their support by attending today's conference. We also want to extend congratulations to the newly inducted Lakea Lifetime members, Victoria Pipkin Lane, Alice Parker, and Jason H. Williams. Thank you for your unfailing support of Lakea. Congratulations to Nicole Vick and to the Lakea Scholarship awardees. Your futures are indeed bright, and Lakea is so pleased to play a part towards your success. We look forward to hearing about their future professional and educational endeavors. At this time, I would also like to thank and acknowledge those who played a significant part in the success of this general conference. A sincere thank you and congratulations for a successful event to Lakea's outstanding membership committee for making this event possible and perfect. A tremendous thank you to Dolores Elegant, Membership Committee Chair, to Tara Parham, Membership Committee Co-Chair, to Terry Gilliam, Lakea's Scholarship Committee Chair, Mary L. Calhoun, Retired Committee Chair, and to Lakea Committee Chairs, and to our multifaceted and talented moderators, Anika Phillips and Daryl Burnett. As representatives of Black Los Angeles County, Lakea is here to serve you, our members and our community and our supporters. We thank you all for your continued support. And as stated in our association's philosophy statement, we believe that sharing our cultural heritage and learning about other cultures should serve as an inflection point, and it creates space for us to reflect, to dialogue, and to begin to address those complex societal issues, including racial bias, the lack of economic opportunity, and social injustice that tend to divide us rather than unite us. It is our hope and expectation that today's conference was a step among many